welcome to Chaotic Service.
Chaotic service.
Oh yeah, girl,
Oh
get
yeah.
it. I'm Kat.
I'm Tiff.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
Tiff Cat, Tiff Cat,
Tiff
Cat
cat,
Cat,
Tiff cat.
Tiff
It's
Cat,
a
Tiff
different
Cat.
breed,
Shout out to
baby.
Mr. Enhance.
Shout out Mr.
All
Enhance.
right.
Y'all don't know, but you will.
No, they won't.
Newsy doozy.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, yeah. We are going to be talking about 2024 and how painful it was, but also how beautiful it was. The true duality of life, darkness and light, which is the beauty as well.
Also, let's preface.
Yes.
Well,
Wait, let's start with like my Spotify Wrapped of
yeah.
2024. First would be turbulent.
Mm.
Chaotic, no pun intended. But again, beautiful, light, love, growth, evolution, introspection, but also fucking insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, really wild. Probably one of my hardest, but produced the most growth year I've had in my 31 years. So I'm definitely really grateful for it, but I think it's a topic to be talked about.
It sure is.
um going back to sort of the Spotify Wrapped idea, I feel like, I talked about turbulent, and I think when I think about turbulent, I relate that to the amount of like loss that took place, loss on a platonic level, loss on a romantic personal level, and then even loss in like a professional sense. Um, I think those are probably like the big three. Um,
Physicality, moves,
yes,
transitions into
yes,
new spaces, mindsets, personal evolution.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, like so much, more than I think we can both agree, more than like both of us, hey sweetie, both of us have probably felt comparatively to past years. Even 2020, that was wild. I still think 2024 like takes the cake.
Absolutely.
um but kind of like going down the avenue of like loss, um a lot of like heartbreak, and I think a lot of that lived in relationships, again, both platonic and romantic, that meant a lot to us, that we thought were going to be able to outlive the test of time, and what that feels like to just kind of embrace those feelings, like literally from your head to your toes, the good and the bad of that, and what that looks like going into the new year to be better from it. Because you have the loss, obviously, that you choose, right? You're choosing to let something go to bring more in, and then loss of things that we don't have any control over. And I think there's hardships in both, but particularly in the ones that we don't have as much control in. And when I say that, I mean control because we can't control the actions of other people. And when the
Mm-hmm.
actions of other people are determining how we are going to move forward in those relationships, it makes it harder because we often like to live in the potential of people.
Yeah. 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 And I think generally there has been so much grief within
Grief.
society.
Yeah.
Me.
Yes, when we say
You.
society, we mean us.
Yeah.
And
But also
yeah.
within our close circles and like mutually and exclusively. I think that I've definitely witnessed so much breaking down.
Mm-hmm. Of houses.
Yeah.
Breaking down of houses and spaces, relationships, but like again, the beauty behind it being that we can rebuild with new bricks. And I think that's what's important too, is even in destruction, we oftentimes lean into those same bricks, right? And wanting to use those same bricks from destruction to build a new house, when it's like you want a new house with new bricks.
Yeah. Grappling to find the correct bricks and
Right.
the transfiguration of seeing what was so broken down and reflecting that onto your new choices of a new home.
And I think also it's like letting go of those bricks is hard because when you built that house, it was with the intention of love.
Right.
It was with the intention of it staying there forever. Everyone does end up moving out of their homes and things like that. But I'll say in 2024, some of those homes, for me, and I think you would agree, and our listeners, were homes I didn't think when I started 2024 I was going to want to leave or that I was going to have to leave for
Right.
a myriad of reasons.
Yeah.
And thinking about that both inspires me, but also, is sad.
Yeah. The theme of detachment. So on that,
Yes. Attachment, big, big word for
big
2024.
word for this moment, because I'm gonna preface.
Yeah.
We recorded a beautiful episode. It was gorgeous. It was
It
immaculate. It
was.
was amazing. And we're currently filled with a lot of grief in our hearts of how amazingly that episode went. And come to find out, there was no volume. Our mics turned off.
It
So
was honestly giving
it
2024.
really is. It's like we did a lot of test clips. Everything was going great, and then sure enough.
It
So
wasn't.
here we are practicing yet again the endless loop that 2024. Of course, we're discussing it, and it said, "Bam, practice detachment one more time."
Yeah, but I think that's the reminder. Like, when we're thinking about 2025, it's like we're going to take some of those lessons from 2024 and bring them into 2025 and, like, really actually be intentional about practicing them, checking in with ourselves, checking in with our friends, holding our friends accountable to those things. And, when I talk about friends, it comes up a lot for me in 2024 because there's definitely some friendships that I thought were going to be bricks in my house that were there forever. And it most of them were a very hard decision to have to leave behind and
Disintegrate.
yeah, uh,
Mm-hmm.
evaporate from,
Mm-hmm.
whether that was because of boundaries being crossed, not feeling like there's reciprocation of respect, reciprocation of love. Love is huge for us. I know it's huge for our listeners. And when I say love, I mean true, deep, I pour into you, you pour into me. The root of our relationship is in love, and we
Mm-hmm.
want the best for each other, and we can see past our differences in turbulent moments because we see each other. And I
Right.
feel like in 2024, there was a lot of instances where I felt seen truly and deeply, and then learned that I wasn't really seen at all. I was actually being seen um, under really constricting terms of other individuals.
Right. And I think that word accountability comes back around to this, and coming into relationships with love and compassion. And
Reciprocated accountability.
yeah, exactly that. You could say that again. Um,
Reciprocated accountability.
reciprocated.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's deep dive on it.
When I think about reciprocated accountability, I think that means that we are all perfectly imperfect, and my experience of something may be different from your experience of something. And even though you may affect me in a certain way, I should approach you from a place of wanting to understand before wanting to tell you about what you did wrong to me
Yeah.
and assuming that you were potentially intentionally trying to hurt me or trying to do something different, because I don't always have all the facts of what's going on. I think we sometimes live in our own heads, that we forget that someone else has their whole personal perception, narrative, things that they're going on inside of them that they're not telling people. There's a lot of people that suffer in silence.
Absolutely. And
Um,
it's like that interpretation too.
yeah, of like what's really going on. It's like I can approach you and say, why'd you do that, Tiff? I didn't like that. I wanted to bring this up to you, instead of just say, hey, can we talk about this? This is kind of, how I perceived what was going on. And but what was going on with you? Like, what's your thoughts about how
Right.
this thing went, or how you worked through this thing, or how we work together, or whatever it is? Because I feel like we can get a lot of answers by actually asking questions before going into a conversation with the mindset to be right or the mindset to debate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I know that everybody has their own curated narrative based off of the domino effect that life throws at us, and it individually, uniquely gives us our own perspective on how we handle things. We are on our intake, on our output, and relationally, we have a choice to come into those situations with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
How we treat others, how we receive others, or we can come at it with pride and ego. And I think that gets in the way of some really, what could be extremely beautiful connections that have longevity.
Yes. And how can you really take full accountability when you don't have the perception of both sides?
Right.
Like, how can you do that? Because sometimes we act in a way that, let me rephrase this. Sometimes we do things and we think we're being perceived a certain way when actually our energy and what we're doing and what we're saying is actually opposite of what we think is happening.
Right.
And that goes into like projection. That again goes into the personal stuff that we have going on
And deflection.
and deflection. So when I think of 2024 and just relationships that were hard and relationships that ended, I think a lot of it was rooted in that, and is just rooted in not show what actually rooted in showing up to be right instead of trying to show up to have compassion and to listen and to be present and to see the person and to look into their eyes and know that again at the root you love each other. And how do we
Mm-hmm.
move forward in love and not move forward in ego and in hate?
Right. Yeah. In 2024, I grieved a lot
Yeah.
from a home, a romantic relationship,
Yep, same.
some very, what I thought were important relationships, friendships, family members, past versions of myself.
Let's actually pivot to the past versions of yourself that you're talking about, because that was also something that came up a lot for me in 2024 is, you know, who I might have been in April was not who I was in November.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think in tandem, you and I both we've witnessed each other's development in such different ways. We held each other through a lot of situations.
Hmm. We support each other through better understanding boundaries and how to
Mm-hmm.
set boundaries. I've learned so much from you in our friendship about how to create boundaries that are sustainable. And when I say sustainable, I mean when you are filled of love, want to give love, look at the world as if we're all here just to love, it's very easy to overlook behaviors thinking that a yellow is turning into a green when a yellow is really turning into a red, and how to compartmentalize people in our lives.
Right.
Because as much as you may love and see the potential in someone, you know, when people show you who they are, like you need to believe them, not believe the potential of who they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think it's hard sometimes to disintegrate by choice connections that do mean so much to you in that like pure love hard type of way, because you feel it in your bones and your veins. And to look at somebody, feel like you're being really seen by them, see them, but then be so hurt by them and not being able to understand how they don't understand, but also not understand how did they get to such a place to where they could do that to me.
Right. And there's so much confusion within grief and grappling for answers that you will probably not ever understand. And that comes back to detachment. And I think that I have watched you gracefully move through so many boundaries being placed based on the practical application of those lessons being learned. I'm really proud of you. Let me just say that.
No, I appreciate that. And it goes both ways. I mean, the way that we learn from each other is also
Right.
making us better. And it just makes me think about how we've talked about the topic of like codependency.
Whew, what a
and
loaded one.
and some of you may be thinking like, what does codependency have to do with what we're talking about? But whether codependency is existing in a romantic relationship or friendship, we oftentimes associate that to it being a negative thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially with this sort of push for like hyper independence that goes on, the hyper
Right.
independence propaganda that
Right.
goes on of
Yeah.
do it yourself. If you can't do it yourself, nobody else can do it for you. Be there for you. And it's like we're literally all on this earth together to figure out why we're all here, but do it with grace and do it with love and do it with,
Hmm.
again, compassion, because we really don't know, and there is a healthy level of codependency. Is it good to rely on someone to have to wake up in the morning? Absolutely not. But the codependency to make each other better every day, to be the best version of ourselves, to then enter spaces as the best version of ourselves, like that is powerful. And community is powerful. And
Yeah.
2024, I think, definitely verified the need for community.
Hmm. And interdependence, healthily understanding your boundaries as an independent individual while still also healthily relying, depending, again, that healthy level of codependency. It's like we don't need to isolate ourselves so far that we're disconnected, but we also can't enmesh ourselves so deeply within our relationships that we lose sight of our individuality.
Yes. And I think that huge lesson of 2024 again was exactly that concept. Um, Getting lost in those relationships, getting
Yeah.
lost in trying to preserve them because you love the individual so much on whatever level that you're willing to stick your neck out into the road no matter what's coming, but that's not being reciprocated.
Right.
And we're often told, don't have expectations. And I'm going to challenge that because I don't think it is so crazy to have the expectation that if I'm doing this for you or I'm being this way for you, I'm showing up, that I shouldn't expect for you to come to me with that.
Right.
I think it's a very human thing to want to be valued in the way that you're valuing someone. And that's different from expectations like on a monetary level. Like I
Mm-hmm.
might have the funds to go get a massage every day, but you may not. So I'm not going to expect you to be able to come to every massage with me.
Right.
Like that's
That have the
way
same capacity.
capacity. Like that's
Right.
so different.
Yeah.
But it's to be kind to somebody, to show up for somebody. If I'm doing that for you, yeah, I do actually expect that to come in return. And do I expect that to look perfect all the time? Absolutely not. But when that actually looks not the same at all, where that looks like I'm showing up for you, but I'm feeling exploited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing up for you, but I'm feeling attacked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing up for you, but you're showing me signs of not really seeing what my true character is based on how you're treating me. That is heartbreaking.
Right. Yeah.
And that was felt a lot in 2024. Um, and the positive side, of course, is like the friendships that come out of reflecting on that, reflecting on reciprocation, knowing what's for you, knowing what's not for you, and then being confident in making those decisions to release what's not for you so that you can receive wholeheartedly the things that are for you. Releasing is so difficult, but I think when we take a step back and we look at all the things that we've released or have released us, and then everything that came our way, that is a sign from whatever you believe in that like you are on the right track.
Right.
And
It
in those
only readied you for more.
Yes. And in those moments of darkness where you're reflecting and you're sad about the loss, it's like, but look at everything that you've gained. Look at
Mm-hmm.
everything that we are bringing into the new year.
Yeah. And I know with as heavily of lovers, as hard of lovers as we are, and every variation of relationship in our lives, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to this, you can come to a point where sometimes you can be taken advantage of. And I think when that happens in those instances, you do need to take people at face value. Coming back to your point of that expectation, like it's not even that it's transactional. It's that if I am willing to show up for you like this, I expect at least at the bare minimum the utmost safety within our relationship, within our connection. The safety. Don't take advantage of my kindness, of my love.
Say a little louder for the people in the back.
Bring some compassion to the plate at least. And what can we co-create so beautifully together with, again, longevity?
Hmm. And it just goes back to other point around like the projection part of that is like, how can we be in the same space with each other and be so present in that moment that yes, we are understanding that we're both experiencing different hardships in life, but we're not going to project that onto each other. That's where so many relationships go left. It's that projection of our own pain onto people in front of us who want nothing but love, want nothing but to love us, to support
Yeah.
us, and then taking advantage of that and projecting until we tire the other person out,
Right.
and then we're wondering why they left. They're
Right.
wondering why they're tired. I mean, how long do you wait for someone to treat you the way that you're treating them?
Right.
And how long do you look at what the facts are? How long do you look at not what they're saying, but what they're doing? And
Hmm.
keep expecting something different. That's like literally the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and wanting a different result. But when you are rooted in love, it's so easy to allow that pattern to continue because the loss of the person may feel way worse in your mind than just accepting what it really is
The radical acceptance of reality,
of reality.
actuality. And
Yes.
it's also not even just within relationally, like relational conflict, but also the tangible grief that can be felt within professionality, career switches, the physicality too of the detachment of leaving different home spaces, communal spaces, friendship circles. It really is so applicable to everything we pour our hearts into, have the potential of completely dissolving right in front of you, and seeing that as a moment, leaning into the silver lining and not invalidating the grief and the feelings of loss, but feeling that out. I know I personally have gone through a significant loss of a romantic relationship this year, and the first month, I it was actually on my birthday. um, I left the relationship same day, got my own apartment.
Because
um,
you're a badass.
4 years after a very significant connection ended. Um, and I took that entire first month, I went in complete hermit mode. I got off social medias. I focused on my daughter, my work, and my pain. I journaled every single day. I really honed in on that grief, and I sat with it,
Sitting with it. I think coming out of
processing.
2024, it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. And it's that continual looping of going through different, and it feels like different variations of the same situation almost, where
Yes,
it's like
yes.
you attach and then you feel so much love, and then it disintegrates or it just absolves because it just doesn't end up being the pureness, the wholeness of what you wanted it to be, what you expected it to be, what you attached to the ideation of it. And with that breakdown, you sit with it, you process it, you may go through it again and come out on the other side with another perspective on it, and it's like
Yes.
that has been such a common theme for me, and I know that a lot of people that I am close to have also experienced. And I really think that 2024 has been made like massively all about the transfiguration of loss to new values, new outlooks, new perspectives, how new boundaries, how we
Mhm.
want to approach new opportunities. And wow, I will sit here and say that grief is cyclical
It's definitely
of
not
the same
linear.
things,
Grief is definitely
No,
not linear.
you'll feel good and then bam, another wave.
And I think that's also normal, right? And I think not running away from the wave is where we can also find comfort in the discomfort because we're not becoming those feelings. We're just letting them exist and reflecting on them. And then the sun comes out and the sky's blue and you realize that everything's okay and it's just a part of this cycle of life, the ups, the downs, the ebbs and the flow. But I like have to take a moment to commend you on how you've handled all of that. How you've handled all of that and I've taken note of it in my own very similar situation and you're 100% right because going through essentially the same thing as a high level as you did, I found real love at the end of it, you know, and that was not the goal at all. Definitely wasn't the
It wasn't
goal.
even a foresight.
It wasn't even a foresight, but it's like, you know, releasing some of those things that we are not um in a healthy way codependent
Right.
with
And
on
fully
whatever.
enmeshed.
Yeah, those kinds of things, and like seeing it for what it is opens the door for those other perspectives, that now it's not just that thing, that one thing you might have received. It's like, wait a minute, I made this decision to stick to my values, live my truth, live in my authenticity, and look what's coming towards me. Because what we put out always comes back in all the time.
Exactly.
So it's like stepping in to that power, owning that, and even when it's scary, still jumping off the cliff.
Right. Yeah. And that realization of what true real love feels like. I know I've felt that inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
Loving myself so fiercely has looked like me choosing myself.
Yes.
And it's having that comparison, like comparatively, what that felt like. And I mean, wow, what that felt like in comparison to really holding space for yourself. And, when you're saying like the difference of holding your own hand and going through things, that real relationship that you develop with yourself as you sit with your feelings and validate your own feelings. I think that discipline within itself has the more gratifying feelings that bleed into everything else in life.
Yes.
Because if you can do that, you can also know how to hold other people's hands. It's the empathy. Going through hardship teaches you, you're not going to sit there and see somebody else and they're going through things and just be like, oh, that sucks. No, you're going to see that and you're going to be like, I understand that pain. And I may not know how to exactly hold space for you in the way that you may require, but I'm willing to try because I see you.
One, you're listening to hear, you're not listening to respond. I think we oftentimes think that we need to fix everybody's problems,
Yeah.
when what people often need is just someone to sit there and listen. And if you
Right.
have something to contribute, that's great. But your presence alone, just being there, again, holding that space, is a gift that keeps on giving.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are also teaching them to be able to do the same thing, because we do sort of live in this world that is like so reactive, so
Yeah.
hyper responsive.
Right.
There has to be an answer for everything, but not really.
Right.
Not really. Me,
Yeah.
the times we've had here where it's just one of us yapping away while the other
Mm-hmm.
one just saying all this stuff. It's like oftentimes, we're thinking the same thing because we're besties, but it's
Right.
like we allow each other to, on an individual level, get to a point that we already know on our own sides, but we leave space to like let each other get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once one of us has gotten there, then we open the door of like like conversing about like more in depth about what it means, how you feel,
Right.
personal thoughts on it, that kind of thing, without feeling the need to fix,
Right.
because most things anyway aren't going to be fixed in a conversation.
Yeah. And I actually learned a skill from my therapist within the past year where I was having a hard time. I had a friend in my life that was going through a whole whirlwind of her own problems, and I didn't quite know how to show up for her, and it was hurting me because I wanted to. And something that she equipped me with is when you are in that space of wanting to be there for somebody, but you don't know how to, or you can, like you were saying, like where their mind needs to land in that might be helpful, but they're not there yet, is ask questions. Ask them questions that could possibly get them into that line of
Be
thinking. You don't have
curious.
to tell people what to do. You don't have to suggest. You don't have to give them the answers that they're not ready for. It's exactly giving them the curiosity. And on that note, I would like to ask you, I already know, but I think it's a beautiful perspective and the world needs to hear it. Oh, beloved listeners, are you ready for this? I would
I
like
knew
to.
this. I'm like, what is she gonna ask me?
um, no, your insight, or I guess your perspective on healing, becoming healed, the journey of healing.
So my relationship with the word healing is a bit complex. Also working in the wellness industry, yoga, meditation, that kind of thing. I'm kind of, I get a little triggered by that word. And I say that because I don't believe that anyone can be healed. I think we learn how to sit with our pain. I think things can feel healing. I think it can feel good to you, but the body keeps score. The body keeps count. Those things that we experience have made us who we are today. And you might do this, you might go on this retreat, you might go to this concert, you might go on this vacation. And it's like, that's not going to heal you because the more comfortable we get with sitting with our trauma and knowing that we are not our trauma, the easier it is to just kind of move forward with grace and understanding and patience for ourselves and in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about the word healing, the way that it's sometimes used in a commercial way, like, come to my retreat, you're going to be healed, or come to my yoga class, you're going to be healed. Like, I also, as someone that's a facilitator, never want to be responsible for someone else's healing. And I say that because I'm, how I look at it is, I'm just going to help and support you, get you to the door, but you're the one that's going to open it and you're the one that's going to walk through it. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to know that when you're not with me, because I meet people from all over the world, that you feel strong enough to sit with yourself and be okay
Right.
with the hardships that you've gone through, that you're going to make it through that dark day where you're remembering something or something triggers you, and being, again, comfortable with being uncomfortable and sitting next to that. So I just get iffy about that word because of the way that I see it being used in a commercial level and the way that I think it tricks some people into thinking they can go do all these stuff and they're suddenly going to be healed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
It's
it's a,
that level of expectation that you may place on yourself that's unrealistic.
yeah, and it's a reason why I don't really use it in my own facilitating and practices because I think it can be very damaging. Again, not saying that something cannot feel healing, but to go into something thinking that this is going to heal me, and then that moment where you realize because something creeps up because we're humans and we could get triggered by the wind blowing, then you feel like all that stuff was a waste. And
Right.
all that time that you spent pouring into your own cup wasn't a waste.
Right.
We're just human. And
Yeah.
you're just getting more comfortable with knowing that you went through dark shit, but it's not who you are, and you're not that person. And those people that might have contributed to that, they don't own your emotions, they don't own you. You are you, and you can get through the moments of feeling triggered by those things, and you can just sit next to it
Mm-hmm.
comfortably. That did happen to me.
Right.
I did experience that. I do feel like shit right now, but it's okay. Like, that's just a part of me. And so that's why my relationship with that word, and why you'll never see on any of my personal stuff, like, I will literally not post something that I really like if it uses that word,
Right.
because of my devotion to how strongly I feel about people leaning into it and relying on it. And
Mm-hmm.
again, my goal is never for anybody in those spaces to look at me as somebody that can heal them.
Take away all of their pain.
I
And you know,
can't.
that's something beautiful that you taught me is that I have been sitting in really hard feelings that have, I mean, been generated throughout my entire life. And I mean, even some that have resurfaced still to this day that I experienced when I was just a little jit. Okay, Florida girl. No, but I was like such a senseless kid when certain things happened to me, and still as a grown woman I experience deep pain, and you've held me through these things, and something you really taught is exactly that concept, and that adequately equipping yourself with the tools to help you sit through that is so much more invaluable than putting definitives on healing.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm, taking even for myself from 2024, is just
exactly.
that, like,
The tools.
the tools, like, what are these tools? What can I take from these ended relationships, jobs that I quit, things that I didn't want to do anymore, and be so intentional in 2025 of, like, if something doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it. If a relationship doesn't feel good, I'm not going to be in it. If a job doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it, because
Yeah.
it's really how you show up for yourself, your mental health, because how can you show up as the best version of yourself in spaces if you're allowing yourself to be drained by things that aren't serving
Mm-hmm.
you? You really can't. And then the problem with that is you set this expectation for people around you because you're killing yourself, right? They're seeing you, they're now like, and I also like to say that some people will unintentionally exploit people. So I think there are people that intentionally do that. Then I think people unintentionally, because of the behaviors that you sort of coach them into being comfortable with because
Right.
you've allowed them to cross those boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's okay or that it's the fault is placed on the individual feeling that way,
Hmm.
but it's like really knowing the things that are for you, being intentional, being confident about that, releasing what doesn't serve you, receiving what does, is what serves longevity of
Yeah.
self.
Yeah. And thus once you have that, then it's relationally as well. And I mean, beautifully said, sister. I think also there is a sense of enabling when you are allowing people to cross what should be boundaries, because that does, I mean, it's enabling toxic behavior where, I mean, from a place of love, I've had to sever friendships that I didn't think that I would ever, because I wasn't willing to enable that. If you're gonna snake me, if you're gonna do, unhealthy things for our connection, I'm not gonna enable that. And I'm going to send you off with love and compassion still. I may be severing the friendship, but I'm still rooting for you. I see that it's not a reflection of me and what I'm willing to give in this connection, but it's somewhere that you haven't discovered yet. And
Yeah.
so I want to also love you by leaving you.
Oh, say it again. No, I mean, that rings very, very true for me in
Yeah.
2024. Like, one friendship in particular was something that I thought was truly and deeply a soul connection that I thought would be existed in my life forever. Very, very heartbreaking not to have it, even to this day, even though I know it's the best thing for me to do in all ways. But when I reflect on things about it, it's like there were those yellow red flags. There were those things that I was seeing, but when you love so hard and you really do see someone, you just put your blinders on. And for me, in that situation in particular, that was the best thing to do, because
Mm,
how long are you going to take and take, like, and take and take? You have to decide, like, what's your breaking point?
right.
Are you respecting me? Do you value me, or do you only value me when I show up in the way you want me to show
Right.
up?
And the way that benefits you.
Benefits you.
Right.
And that's not to say that in that situation I was perfect, didn't, this, that, and everything. I reflect wholeheartedly on some of the things that I could have done not to enable that, some of the things that I could have done differently to set better boundaries. Um,
See, you know what that is? You know what that sounds like? You know what exactly that is? Accountability.
yeah,
Introspection, accountability. You see where you plug then.
yeah, and it's still hard to think about, because that's what I would have loved in return,
Right.
is back to that root, back to that, like, wait, I thought we like loved each other. Why are you not standing up for me? Why are you not asking me about my experience? Like,
Right.
what is this side? Because I'm seemingly not showing up the way that you think, but the way that you think isn't necessarily right. And I'm
Right.
not saying the way that I think is right. But why am I being approached in this way, where all of a sudden, like, some of the things that have affected me so deeply in life are now being like weaponized?
Right. Why are you not advocating for our connection?
Why are you not advocating
You're only
for?
advocating for yourself. And I mean, with that lack of accountability, it is lack of awareness. And
Yeah,
again, rewind, it's such a standing point of, that pride getting in the way.
pride,
It's just not
ego.
wanting to confront your own shit.
Correct. You not wanting to confront your own shit. And like, that's just one example. There's definitely a couple other that were very similar.
Yeah.
I think for both of us in 2024, and going into 2025, it's like that can't happen, because I think too, I wanted to mention earlier, it's like sometimes we reflect on these things, or something burns down, and we fall back into bad habits.
Yeah.
And when we think sometimes we're moving forward, we're actually just running to safety to those habits with somebody else, other people, other situations. Those same behaviors that cause demise in one situation, we're now just taking them to a different one that we are deciding it'll be fine in, when it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be fine. Because like, what we need to do is reflect on ourselves and how we can grow and how we
Mm-hmm.
can be better, and how we can enter those spaces again as the best version of ourselves without hurting the people around us. And again, not projecting, because that projection is what ends up hurting the people that just want to feel seen and just want to feel loved. And that's
Mm-hmm.
again, not going to look perfect every time, but oftentimes we take those bad habits and we might dissolve one thing and we bring those bad habits either to a past relationship, a current one, a future one we decide to create or whatever, rekindle, start, all those things. And then we end up in that same loop where we're like, why am I back in this situation again? Just with a different person, a different place, a different thing. Because we haven't actually taken any of the lessons learned from one of the most heartbreaking things possibly in your life or in the
Mm,
batch of them, and actually reflected on them enough to try to change.
yeah.
And change comes down to wanting to change.
Right. The willingness to grow, to evolve. And I
And you
think,
can't make people change.
right, no, no, you can't. But what you're not changing, you're choosing. And that is
Yes.
something that was such a catalyst for a lot of things that I left in 2024. And I'm going to carry that into 2025 and for the rest of my life is what you are not changing, you are choosing. And so I'm going to choose to take that at face value, period, point blank.
Period.
And I, within the reflection of those cyclical situations where, these situations are actually inevitably trying to take you closer to yourself. And whether you're ready for it or not, it's going to keep showing up until the lesson is learned. And that's what I believe. There are so many resources of introspection to gain that self awareness of how you can do better. One that I really applied this year, I actually gained from a book. It's The Artist's Way. I always forget. But one of the initial tasks that it gave me is every day, it's called morning pages. And every day you write 3 whole pages of a journal entry. And by the first page, you may have gotten all of what's on the forefront of your mind out. Well, you still have to fill the second and third page. So what are you going to do? You're going to keep digging deeper until you've got every little drop juiced. And it's so wild
The
because I
lemon
would
is
have
squeezed.
exactly it's and those lemons that life are giving you are begging to be squeezed to the last drop. Like, why even waste it? But that's something that I was having these ideas come to me, and also just like more tangible thoughts of what there's like the perspective being blocked by human emotion because it's so complex, and a lot of it is defense mechanism.
Trauma
And then
responses.
exactly. And so then, when you uncover that layer and you start really peeling back the onion and seeing what the core looks like, that is a great tool, journaling. I'm a big fan of it. Um, and there's something that I read recently. It's a quote that I actually read like on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day going into 2025. It was exactly what I needed to hear because I kept having these waves of grief slam me, tsunamis of grief. And the quote, I'm going to butcher the author's name, but it's Merrick Karimi.
Hmm.
And the quote goes something like, you cannot simply sit and stare at your wounds forever. At a point, you're going to have to get up, take the actionable step, and start walking again. And I know I'm not the only person that experienced so much grief in 2024, but there comes a point where you simply just cannot keep staring at it. And you got to gaze at the horizon and see what else there is.
See what else there is and know that moving forward and only looking back when it makes sense is going to serve the steps that you're trying to take forward is going to be such a vital tool.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think too, there's that side of it where people are like, move forward, never look back. And I don't think it's bad to look back and reflect because that's also how you can track your own growth and look back and say, wow, I've really grown from that. I would have done something totally different if it was me 3 months ago, a year ago, whatever, in that situation. It's just not obsessing over past decisions, not obsessing over the past version of yourself, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that you currently are and who you want to be tomorrow, a year from now, 6 years from now. Like those are all intentional decisions and you're being made better from those things that you went through that are behind you. I think oftentimes people want to obsess over like don't live in the past. And yeah, we don't want to live in the past, but you don't have to ignore the past.
Yeah. It's that deliciously disgusting word of detachment.
Detachment, like we can detach, we can move forward, we can release, we can receive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to change too, because I don't ever feel like people sometimes realize, I wouldn't say ever, but sometimes kind of feel like they can't change their mind. Because I might have said this to you yesterday, I have to feel the same way about it today. It's
Right.
just not true. You can change your mind. I'm going to bring this back to something that I always tell my yogis in class. One of my favorite poses is fetal pose, which is, I mean, not an active pose at all, but I love it because it's the pose that we enter this life in, the pose that we leave this life in, but also a reminder that we can live many lives in this current consciousness.
Mm. Mm, 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 mm.
And what's really
Yeah.
behind that is you can change your mind, you can
Yeah.
change direction, you can evolve. When we evolve and people see that, people see us walking forward, taking risks, making hard decisions, letting things go, it gives other people the confidence to do the same, and then they're showing up better. And now we're all coexisting in this way where we are the best version of ourselves, pouring into our own cups, so the other cups that we go up and we pour into are getting the best and highest version of who we are in that moment.
Yeah. You literally ultimately cannot lose by actively seeing bad things and allowing it to bring you closer to your authentic self. Because I mean, yes, it gives other people within our collective confidence, but it also, even in the smallest of ways, impacts the people around you. Like when you go to a coffee shop and you're just ordering a little bevy and you walk in all feeling groovy and in your energy, and you walk in and you smile at them. You hit them with that smile, and now they're feeling good. And you really feel the difference between somebody that's walking in their power. And it's hard to figure that out because we also have so many conditionings within our
To
upgrowing.
unlearn.
Yeah, upbringing.
Bring up, but we're going up.
We're
We're
good. We're
older.
growing. We're
We're
always
growing.
growing. We're
We're
always
doing
growing.
better
We're
every day.
king. But no, I mean, truly, it's like there is no, there is loss, but there's no losing.
I love that. There's no loss, but there's no losing. 100%. We should like. Is that a quote somewhere?
There is there is loss, but there's no losing.
Yeah. Say them one more time.
There is loss, but there ain't no losing, baby.
No, there is no losing, and I think it's like, to your point about the coffee shop. It's like unintentional support. I mean, there's obviously intentional support, but unintentional support in that we don't even know what that smile is doing for someone. We don't
Right.
know what holding that door for someone
Yeah.
is doing. We don't know what listening to someone yapping on the elevator while you're trying to get to the eighth floor is doing for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know how much we could be supporting them in that space. And then they take that and they, again, try to show up in that space, for other people in that
Right.
same way. Like the small, small acts of kindness, it goes so, so, so far.
Yeah.
And then there's this like symbiotic sort of like radiant glow that comes from it that's like everlasting, because you don't have to work that hard to support people.
It's the butterfly effect.
Exactly. It's really not that hard to support people. I
Right.
think oftentimes it's like people think you need to have this like big grand gesture of support, and it's just the smallest ways. Like, tell someone they look pretty. Tell
Right.
them that you're proud of them for getting a promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Ask somebody how their dog is.
Yeah.
Ask people some of those questions that nobody probably asks them, just because like you just want to know how somebody is doing.
Right.
It doesn't need to be like this deep, deep thing where you're going down these rabbit holes, which are fun. We go down rabbit holes all the time, but even just in the small way, people will remember that. People will
Right.
remember you asking them, "Hey, what'd you have for dinner last night? Did you like it?" "Oh yeah, I did actually like it."
Yeah.
And it's like that moment of true presence
Human to human connection.
is such a gift.
Yeah.
And that also feeds into cultivating sustainable relationships with people.
Yeah.
Because, of course, you're going to have these deep, raw conversations, but it's also the balance of just like easy
Yeah.
friendships. Like,
Oh, easy breezy,
yeah,
baby.
like easy, because we all really are going through our own stuff outside of the things that are happening with each other and in our communities. And sometimes we do just want to like go get a smoothie and laugh about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's okay. We don't
Or cry
always,
real quick.
yeah, or cry.
Get a
Like I love
good
a good
sob real
cry. I'd be
quick.
crying. I cried a lot in 2024. I'm sure I'll cry a lot in
I
2025,
think I
but
cried
like
like 4 times today.
right.
But now I'm laughing.
We're not laughing and it's like all of these things that happened in 2024, just like to me it's like the sun is shining in 2025, and I
Yeah.
know that there might be rain around the corner at any moment, but like the sun is shining. New friendships have formed, new relationships have formed, perspectives, all of that have formed this way that like truly if the things that didn't go down in 2024 didn't, I don't know if I'd have some of these things,
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
value them so deeply that I know that they needed to happen. And that's not to say that nothing really, that there again were no like wins in 2024. There were,
Right.
for both of us, we both accomplished so much in 2024. I'm honestly proud of both of us. Like for real, like we really did, and there was just so much leveling up
Yeah. Well,
even
sometimes
through,
it doesn't feel like a win, but I
yes.
mean, subliminally and eventually it is a win. And, sometimes demolition needs to occur to have that brand new, shiny, beautiful construction.
Yeah, we don't want to, back to the first point we made in the beginning, we don't want
Yep.
to build a new house with the same bricks. 2025 is new bricks, new house, new windows. They're all open. The breeze is breezing, the sun is sunning, the birds are birding.
A warm, cozy home full of love.
And knowing that it's going to be okay if it's not a beautiful day outside.
Yeah,
We'll get,
don't let it make you bitter.
yeah, we're going to learn from those moments. We're going to hold on to the relationships and the people and the places that are serving us, helping us, supporting us, and that we're also doing the same in
Right.
those spaces. And I think that is the beautiful outcome of 2024 and makes me very grateful for it and grateful for the people that you and I both share in our lives together, and then the people that we have in our individual spaces,
Shout out
because
all of them.
yeah, literally shout out to y'all,
I don't know what
like
I would do without them.
for real.
Truly.
Yeah, I don't know how to do without you.
I would probably suffocate, to be
I
honest.
know.
I can't imagine a life like that.
No, I feel like
Let's not. I'm going to cry again for the 5th time.
I know. You guys send us some Kleenex. Should we get a PO box?
Let us know.
Let us
Drop some
know. We can
comments.
definitely make an Amazon registry. No, no, no.
It's because we're actually planning to conceive.
I mean, we would make a beautiful baby. We should have twins.
Imagine that. One boy, one girl. Let's start an entire new world.
Let's do it. Maybe on a future episode.
Oh.
Oh. If you're listening, you should start watching. No, but we love you guys, and we are excited to talk about other things and
all the things
and really deep dive into it. Honestly, it's been an honor that this is our first episode that we had to record twice because
round
detachment.
2. Yeah. We learned. We grieved. We got it over.
Yeah.
I also want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to support us. I hope that we left you with some beautiful, delicious, gorgeous messages.
Some golden nuggets. And let
resonate.
us know.
Yeah.
Let us know how you feel. We also love a good challenge to our thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even just some things that you guys want us to talk about. We do have a long list, but we are inspired by the world and the people around us. And so that includes all of you guys listening.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next time.
Chaos!
Foot 5.